Hello everyone, this is Vale Grimace here to bring you a review of Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. Here in Spider-Man Miles Morales, Insomniac has done an amazing job creating another great Spider-Man game. But is it worth the $50 price tag? No. It's a game that was made for next-gen consoles, but for the price, I don't think it is worth that much. It's a great game, but it is half of everything Marvel Spider-Man has. It's a great game telling Miles Morales' story, and is a great tale for the Puerto Rican team, but what Insomniac has provided is half of everything that made Marvel Spider-Man great. You have half the gadgets, half the length of Marvel Spider-Man, half the amount of enemy variety, half the amount of bases to do, and half the suits and mods, making this game quite underbaked. I knew way beforehand that this wasn't going to be a full game at release. I predicted it was going to be an expansion, but for the $50 asking price, I say this is more of a $30 to $40 game. Here in Miles Morales, they recreated Spider-Man with a brand new animation system that looks very stylish and fits Miles' style, as the control scheme is just the same as Marvel Spider-Man with a few new variations to the combat. You have your attack, dodge, and web attacks, with a new addition Venom powers that give Miles a bioelectric discharge that is immensely effective against large groups of enemies or certain enemy types. They also add to your web swing, which is pretty much the same, with new animations to make Miles feel unique. You can dash and jump, giving you more momentum and ways to traverse, with a more well-crafted trick system that's more refined. But these added bonuses are only a small caveat to what this game provides. This game, as I said, is half of everything, which is something that hurts the game for me. You can turn invisible, which can make or break the game for you depending on how you use it. You have classic web shooters, then you get holodrones that attack enemies, with remote mines that can shock enemies, and gravity wells that suck people into a vortex. But that's it. Only 4 gadgets. You don't have the same amount of gadgets that Peter had in Marvel Spider-Man, which are more useful for taking on large groups of enemies and more practical. One thing that I also noticed while going through my playthrough of Miles Morales is that he is quite weak. He takes more punches and kicks to take out one opponent than it took OG Spider-Man in his game. Even with Spider Strength, Miles takes forever to knock out a single enemy. I'll give it some slack in the beginning since you are starting out at base level, but later on, I still felt quite weak, and enemies still took a lot of hits to knock out. As for the combat, it is quite good. It has its own flair to the style that fits Miles' personality as a young Spider-Man. But here's the problem I face with the combat, and it's something I don't see being talked about enough. I was playing on ultimate difficulty, and enemies hit hard in this mode, which is something to be expected. But what I didn't expect from this mode is that it is much easier to get hit in dodges and animations. You can easily get chained into wombo combos that are quite hard to avoid if you go for a dodge. Now maybe Insomniac was trying to go for a more realistic approach to ultimate difficulty, but I found it unfair at times. It makes combat feel unpolished when you are in the middle of a dodge, then immediately while you're in the animation, you get hit. One thing that I want to mention is that in the accessibility setting, there is an option to increase the dodge window. I didn't turn this on because I wanted to challenge myself, but I do think having that as an option versus a visor or suit mod is bad game design. Why it isn't integrated into the game more naturally is a baffling choice. There are a lot of baffling choices in this game, like the fact that Miles' charge jump is weaker than Peter's. Your web shooter capacity is less than Peter's, and gadgets that are quite useless in combat scenarios. Maybe they were trying to compensate for the Venom powers, but I still think Miles should be given more gadgets. Also, in the stealth training challenges Peter gives you, you can be spotted incredibly fast even with a modifier that takes enemies longer to spot you. Other decisions that I find very underwhelming are the suit mods. I found only 2 useful, with the added Vibe Diverse mod that gives you the aesthetic of Into the Spider-Verse. The rest to me were utter garbage, and again, are only half of what Peter had in his game. You also have skills you can unlock, but again, This is even less than Peter, and only a handful of them are actually useful. The game, though, is quite beautiful. The graphics on PS5 with ray tracing looks incredible. One other thing that is a highlight of the game is the game's soundtrack. It is the best soundtrack I heard, and it fits Miles so well with the cool hip-hop vibe that I love. The suits themselves are quite good. I did enjoy them for what they were, but my only interest was into the Spider-Verse suit because I like that suit so much. The world itself is filled with quite a few side missions, which is just busy work like finding someone's lost cat, with more involved side missions that have you uncovering a conspiracy against Harlem, with time capsules to find that give Miles' life more context, and beat samples that you find throughout the city to make your own beats. The story itself is where this game shines for me. It's a coming-of-age story as Peter has to go off to Europe for a work vacation, leaving Miles to take care of the city all on his own. He starts off quite timid and nervous about the whole ordeal, but as the story progresses, you uncover plots and conspiracies that threaten the very safety of the city. It is Christmas time, and Miles reunites with an old friend named Finn, and an incredibly smart girl who has some secrets locked away. Then Miles and another friend named Genki work together to help him become the Spider-Man he was always meant to be. Then there's Rio, Miles' mom, who is running for mayor, fighting against a new company named Roxxon who moved into Harlem providing a new energy source named Nuform, a dangerous substance that can cause bone decay and is incredibly volatile to electricity, causing the substance to explode. You then are met with Miles' very own villain named the Tinkerer, a tech genius who has programmable matter, able to change into anything, who also runs the Underground, a band of mostly teens and young adults who are trying to make a name for themselves while trying to take down Roxxon. And it becomes a race and a mission for Miles to stop the Underground, the Tinkerer, and Roxxon from destroying Harlem on a Fallout level of destruction. It becomes your responsibility to fight these overwhelming odds, with a return from the Rhino, a big Russian who drinks a shit ton of milk, and Aaron Davis, who is Miles' uncle and is later discovered to be the Prowler, an anti-hero that steals stuff for a price. You then see Miles' warm but shaky relationship with his uncle, the close but fallen out friendship with Finn, and his man in the chair, Genki, who helps you along your journey as Miles tries to balance everything. It's a great story, and I enjoyed every bit of it as I died many times to the bosses, especially the Tinker who killed me a lot. Despite all its flaws, I did have a great time playing this game. I just wish there was more to it, like more gadgets to unlock with more upgrades for them. I had a ton of activity tokens by the end game, which can be used to unlock suits, but I only wanted to play with the Into the Spider-Verse suit, making the tokens useless by then. I did enjoy the combat, as I had quite a challenge on ultimate difficulty, but the fact that you can get caught in animations hurts this game for me. With the added fact, at the end of the day, this is half a game that shouldn't be sold at $50. I get that it's made for next-gen consoles, but that asking price does not fit the amount of content you get here. Miles Morales is an expansion as far as I'm concerned, and with half the gadgets, half the damage, half the world content, half the enemy types and bases, half the suit mods, half the bosses, half the amount of suits, and half the skills you can unlock, this game, in my final score, earns a well-deserved 6 out of 10 Venom Punches. Nearly half the score I gave to Marvel Spider-Man, with 1 extra point for Miles, who I do love as Spider-Man. This game could earn a higher rating if the game was priced lower and had more gadgets, but the lack of content is why I'm scoring it so low, because it does not deserve anything higher in my rating. If you love this game to death, that is great. I do hope you enjoy the refined trick system, Venom powers, and suits. It is still a well-polished game. I just don't believe it's a game that earns kudo points from me. Thank you for hearing me ramble, and thanks for clicking on my video. Like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye!